Howard Cosell had lived through many trials. He defended Muhammad Ali when most people turned their backs on him. He received death threats for speaking out on civil rights. He fought with TV executives and angry fans for years. Nothing ever seemed to stop him. But one night in September, his world fell apart. During a football game, he said a single sentence that led to one of the biggest controversies in broadcasting. It shocked people and ended his career in a flash. What he said wasn't meant to offend, but the reaction was fierce. Surprisingly, the person who defended him might surprise you. Howard Cosell was originally named Howard William Cohen. He was born on March 25, 1918, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. His parents were Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. They left their homeland to escape violence and look for better opportunities in the United States. His father, Isidore, was an accountant, and his mother, Nellie, stayed at home. They believed deeply in the power of education, and that belief shaped Howard's early years. The family didn't live in North Carolina for long. Before Howard turned 3, they moved to Brooklyn, New York. The borough was busy, noisy, and full of people from different backgrounds trying to start new lives. It was in Brooklyn that Howard developed a strong personality and quick wit. While other kids got into fights, Howard used his sharp tongue. He read books constantly and quoted them on the playground. He never backed down from an argument. Even as a young boy, he had a big ego, and it only grew as he got older. As Howard grew up, he became more aware of how identity shaped people's lives. In the late 1930s, while attending law school at NYU, he made a big decision. He changed his last name from Cohen to Cosell. He said the name came from his grandfather's original Polish surname, changed at Ellis Island. This wasn't just about honoring his roots. It was also about standing out in a profession where a Jewish name could be a disadvantage. He didn't want to hide who he was, but he also didn't want to be overlooked. In high school at Alexander Hamilton in Brooklyn, Howard became the sports editor of the school newspaper. Even back then, he didn't write easy articles. He gave strong opinions. Some people didn't like it. Some teachers admired his honesty. But nobody ignored him. At just 16, he was already acting like the bold sports journalist he would later become. By the age of 21, Cosell had 2 degrees from NYU, one in English literature and the other in law. That was impressive. He was smart, determined, and ambitious. But he wasn't satisfied with just doing well. He wanted to be known. He wanted influence and a platform. His parents were proud, but they didn't fully understand the fire that burned inside him. When the United States joined World War II, Cosell joined the Army. He served as a major in the Transportation Corps from 1942 to 1945, stationed at the New York port of embarkation. It was a high-pressure job. He helped organize the shipment of troops and supplies across the ocean. A single mistake could delay an entire mission. But Cosell thrived in the role. He handled the pressure well, earned his rank quickly, and proved he could be trusted with responsibility. While serving in the Army, Howard met Mary Edith Emmy Abrams, who was a sergeant in the Women's Army Corps. Dating between officers and enlisted soldiers was against the rules, but Howard didn't care. He went straight to a general and asked for approval. That move took confidence and boldness. The general approved it. Howard and Emmy began a relationship, despite her conservative Presbyterian family having concerns. Howard never let rules or traditions stop him. They got married in 1944, in a Brooklyn judge's chambers. Their marriage lasted 46 years, until Emmy passed away in 1990. After the war, Cosell returned to New York and opened a law practice in Manhattan. He did well. His clients included famous athletes like Willie Mays. He made a good income for the time, around $25,000 to $30,000 a year. But even with that success, something felt off. He didn't enjoy law. He'd walk around his office practicing speeches or pretending to announce sports games. Friends found it odd, but Cosell saw it as preparation. He once said he wasn't average enough to survive in a job he didn't love. He needed something bigger, more exciting, and public. In 1953, he got his first real chance in media. Hal Neal from ABC Radio invited him to host a small show on WABC in New York. The idea was to let Little League players interview Major League stars. Cosell agreed, even though it was unpaid. He kept his law job by day and did radio at night. For nearly 3 years, he didn't make a dime from the show. But he didn't care. It was his foot in the door. The show was meant to be light, but Cosell noticed something more. One day, Yankees outfielder Hank Bauer casually criticized his manager on air. That small comment became news. Cosell saw how powerful live, honest conversations could be. He realized that athletes could reveal real truths if you just let them talk. That lesson stuck with him. Later, ABC President Robert Pauley challenged Cosell to find a sponsor for a new sports segment. Cosell delivered. He got a sponsor and launched the show Speaking of Sports, which would run for decades. His hustle was beginning to pay off. He was no longer just a host, he was shaping the way sports stories were told. By 1956, Cosell quit law and became a full-time sportscaster for ABC Radio. Most broadcasters played it safe. They asked easy questions and avoided controversy. Cosell did the opposite. In one interview, he asked a player if teammates were avoiding him because he shot too much. That was shocking at the time. But Cosell kept pushing. He listened carefully and wasn't afraid to follow up when he sensed a lie. Some athletes didn't like it. Others respected it. Sprinter Tommy Smith, who raised his fist in protest at the 1968 Olympics, chose Cosell for his interviews because he knew Cosell would take him seriously. Over time, Cosell built a reputation. He told the truth. He didn't sugarcoat or flatter. He talked about race, politics, and war, even when people told him to stick to sports. Fans either loved or hated him. But no one ignored him. Some called him the most hated man in sports. Others called him the voice of conscience. His voice was unmistakable, clear, firm, and full of rhythm. His signature line, "This is Howard Cosell, telling it like it is," stayed in people's minds. His relationship with Muhammad Ali became legendary. When the young boxer announced his name change from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali in 1964, many refused to use it. But Cosell did. On national TV, he said the name proudly. He didn't care if people got angry. He understood what it meant to fight for your identity. As a Jewish man who faced his own share of discrimination, Cosell knew the pain of being treated like an outsider. That's why he stood by Ali. Then in 1967, Ali refused to be drafted into the Vietnam War. He said the war went against his faith. He was banned from boxing, lost his title, and became a target of public hate. Cosell didn't abandon him. He called the punishment unfair and unconstitutional. Sponsors pulled ads, networks warned Cosell to stay silent. He refused. He pointed out the hypocrisy. Wealthy white men avoided the draft and were praised, but Ali was punished. That honesty deepened their friendship. They were no longer just media and athlete. They were allies. For nearly 20 years, Cosell and Ali created unforgettable moments on TV. Their interviews were playful, sharp, and real. Ali teased Cosell's toupee, mocked his big words, and pretended to challenge him to fights. Cosell responded with sarcasm and wit. Their back and forth felt like a performance, but the trust was genuine. When the world turned its back on Ali, Cosell gave him a platform. Their bond wasn't just about sports. It was about standing up for truth, even when it was risky. Cosell helped change how people saw Ali. From villain to hero. From fighter to man. Cosell didn't just call fights. He captured history. Like the famous night in 1973 when Joe Frazier faced George Foreman. Frazier kept falling. And Cosell's call echoed, "Down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier." It was more than commentary. It was pure emotion. That moment became legendary. Ali once said Cosell gave him a voice when no one else would. Cosell said Ali helped him become more than a broadcaster. They pushed America to face hard questions about race, war, and justice. Not through shouting, but through honest conversation. In 1970, ABC's Roone Arledge took a risk. He put Cosell on the new Monday Night Football team. Cosell wasn't a former player. He wasn't conventional. But Arledge wanted boldness. And Cosell delivered. Ratings soared. Viewers loved the drama. The next year, Arledge added Frank Gifford, a former football star, to balance Cosell's intensity. Along with Don Meredith, the trio became TV magic. At a time when television was changing and sports coverage was becoming more than just reporting games, three men completely changed how football was shown to the public. These three, Howard Cosell, Don Meredith, and Frank Gifford, weren't just announcers. They were performers in their own way, and each one played a different role. Meredith brought humor and a laid-back style. Cosell added drama and intensity. Gifford balanced them both. Together, they created a kind of magic that people couldn't stop watching. It worked so well that the ratings for Monday Night Football skyrocketed. ABC started charging a huge amount of $65,000 for just 1 minute of advertisement during the game, which was a record-breaking number at that time. This trio didn't just change the way people watched football. They redefined live sports on television. It wasn't just about the game anymore. It was about the experience. The reason people kept watching wasn't only because of the touchdowns or field goals. It was because of the chemistry between Cosell and Meredith. Cosell's serious tone and Meredith's relaxed jokes created a mix that was exciting and fun to watch. They argued on air. They teased each other. One time, in 1974, people even thought they were both a little drunk while broadcasting live. But the viewers didn't care. In fact, they loved it even more. Fans started picking sides. Some people supported Cosell, others loved Meredith. Bars and homes across the country were filled with debates. Who was better? Who was funnier? Who told the truth? The show's producer, Roone Arledge, understood something important. He knew that a little conflict made for good television. So he encouraged it. He didn't want the show to feel rehearsed or fake. He wanted it to feel real. And it did. That realness made it unforgettable. Cosell had a voice that made even the smallest moments feel big. He had one phrase that became legendary: he could go all the way. The way he said it was slow and dramatic, full of emotion. Cosell didn't just describe what was happening. He turned every play into a story. Sometimes he would even share personal details about a player's life right before shouting the line. For Cosell, it wasn't just a touchdown, it was a moment of glory. That phrase became so popular that other sports broadcasters started using it. Chris Berman on ESPN even made it part of his own act. Years later, the phrase still shows up in highlight videos and comedy skits. It wasn't just a line. It became a symbol of how Cosell brought entertainment to sports. But not everyone loved Cosell. He got into a very public and ugly fight with Dick Young, a famous sports columnist. Young hated Cosell so much that he gave him mean nicknames like Howie the Fraud. He even tried to ruin Cosell's interviews by yelling bad words during recordings. Their fight wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. Dick Young stood for the old world of sports reporting through newspapers. Cosell stood for the new world of television. Their arguments weren't just between two men. They represented two different futures for sports media. Cosell didn't hold back. He insulted Young in return, calling him a right-wing cultural illiterate. Their fight went beyond newspapers and broadcasts. They even argued in locker rooms. It was more than just ego. It was about which kind of sports media would win, print or television. Cosell also had trouble with other broadcasters. One of them was Chris Economaki, who was respected for covering motorsports. Economaki once said Cosell had the biggest ego he had ever seen. Their conflict had nothing to do with ratings. It was personal. Cosell had a tendency to hold grudges. If someone made even a small mistake, he wouldn't let it go. One time, at a Christmas party, Cosell got upset just over a simple introduction. He remembered every slight, no matter how minor. People who worked with him said it could be exhausting. But at the same time, Cosell's presence always pulled attention. He was a mix of brilliance and conflict, and that made him unforgettable. Another strong critic of Cosell was Jimmy Cannon, a newspaper columnist who didn't like him at all. Cannon made fun of Cosell's wig and even his name change from Howard Cohen to Howard Cosell. Cannon said Cosell was fake and just playing a character. He joked that if Cosell were a sport, he'd be roller derby. That insult stayed with Cosell for a long time. His unusual look and loud voice made him easy to mock. But instead of hurting him, the jokes made him even more famous. People couldn't stop talking about him. His critics only made his legend grow bigger. He was controversial, and he liked it that way. Cosell wasn't afraid to share his strong opinions, even when they were unpopular. He criticized the growing trend of hiring former athletes to be sports announcers. He called it a ducracy, which meant he thought jobs were being given to people just because they had played the sport, not because they had the skills to talk about it intelligently. This put him in conflict with people like Gifford and Meredith, who were both former players. Cosell said that ex-athletes often lacked depth and insight. He believed that sports commentary should be thoughtful and serious, not just casual conversation. His opinion caused heated debates. Viewers liked seeing familiar faces on TV, but Cosell didn't care. He stayed true to his beliefs. He didn't make many friends that way, but he made people think. Though Cosell came off as loud and tough on television, he was a different person at home. He had a soft side that he kept hidden. He loved his wife Emmy deeply. Her real name was Mary Edith Abrams, and they got married in 1944. They stayed together for 46 years. Cosell once said, "I wouldn't even cross the Triborough Bridge without Emmy." He meant it. She went with him to games, interviews, and events. Everyone in the industry knew how close they were. His daughters, Jill and Hillary, said he couldn't function without her. She gave him balance and peace. When Emmy died in 1990, everything fell apart. Cosell's health went downhill quickly. Just a year later, he had surgery to remove a tumor. 2 years after that, he left broadcasting completely. People who only knew the strong, confident Cosell on TV were shocked to see how broken he became. The truth was, his wife had been his anchor all along. At home, Cosell wasn't the man people saw on screen. He didn't yell or argue. He read poetry to his daughters. He took gentle walks, reciting lines from Keats and Shelley. He played cards with his neighbors and rarely raised his voice. Emmy kept him grounded. Hillary once said her father couldn't live without her, and it was clear she was right. Around his grandchildren, he was always calm and warm. The loudmouth from television disappeared. At home, he was loving and thoughtful. But that version of Cosell stayed hidden from the public. During his time on Monday Night Football, Cosell began drinking heavily. The job brought fame, stress, and sometimes too much alcohol. On November 23, 1970, in cold Philadelphia, Cosell drank several martinis before going live on air. He slurred his words and mispronounced Philadelphia. Then he vomited on Don Meredith's cowboy boots during the show. He had to leave the booth. Viewers were shocked. But it wasn't a one-time thing. ABC staff said he often drank before, during, and after the broadcasts. By 1984, Al Michaels had enough. He told Cosell to his face, "You're ruining the broadcast." The network didn't know what to do. Cosell was still a big name, and the ratings were strong. But his behavior became unpredictable. His drinking became part of his legacy, just like his voice. Deep down, Cosell was insecure. He often worried that people didn't like him. That fear drove many of his arguments and clashes with co-hosts, athletes, and network executives. He constantly asked if people were turning against him. He feared being replaced. His sharp words and bold statements were a way to protect himself. He wanted to be respected. And when he wasn't, it hurt. People thought he was arrogant, but often his anger came from fear, not pride. One of Cosell's most unforgettable moments came on December 8, 1980. During the final minute of a game between the Dolphins and the Patriots, he got terrible news: John Lennon had been shot and killed. Cosell hesitated. He didn't want to say it. His co-host, Frank Gifford, told him he had to. So Cosell went live and told millions of viewers, "This is just a football game." An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News. John Lennon, shot twice in the back, dead on arrival. It was silent after that. Viewers froze. No one expected such heartbreaking news during a football game. That moment showed how powerful television could be. Cosell wasn't just a sports announcer. He was the one who told America that a musical icon was gone. But a few years later, on September 5, 1983, everything changed. During a game between the Cowboys and the Redskins, Cosell commented on player Alvin Garrett by saying, "That little monkey gets loose, doesn't he?" In just 6 words, Cosell sparked a massive scandal. Phones at ABC exploded with complaints. Newspapers and TV shows covered it non-stop. Reverend Joseph Lowery immediately demanded an apology and action from ABC. He used the moment to point out the lack of black voices in sports broadcasting. The public reaction was huge. Talk shows and editorials attacked Cosell. The demand for his firing got louder. At first, Cosell denied saying little monkey. Then he said he had meant it as a compliment about Garrett's speed, not his appearance. ABC tried to defend him, saying it wasn't meant to be racial. But video footage proved what he said. People didn't believe the excuses. The controversy grew worse. Cosell said he had used the phrase before about white players, like Mike Adam and Glenn Howard. He said he even used it playfully with his grandkids. Supporters pointed out that Cosell had always defended civil rights. He had stood by Muhammad Ali and fought against racism. But none of that helped. Some of Cosell's biggest defenders were black athletes and civil rights leaders. Jesse Jackson and Muhammad Ali both supported him. Even Alvin Garrett, the player Cosell was talking about, said he wasn't offended. But by then, public opinion had turned. The story had taken a life of its own. Cosell was finished. By the end of that football season, he was gone from TV. 13 years after helping build Monday Night Football, he walked away. He said the experience was emotionally exhausting. He was tired of how football and television were changing. His exit marked the end of an era. Though he continued on radio until 1992, it was clear he was fading. In 1991, at age 73, Cosell was diagnosed with cancer. He had surgery and also battled heart disease, Parkinson's, and minor strokes. After Emmy's death, nothing was the same. Interviews during this time showed a man full of regret. He felt like he hadn't finished what he started. The powerful voice that had once changed sports was now silent. On April 23, 1995, Howard Cosell died in New York at age 77 from a heart embolism. The news brought mixed reactions. Some called him a legend. Others only remembered the controversy. There were glowing tributes and harsh criticism. Some people mourned. Others moved on. His legacy was forever changed by one sentence. But his impact couldn't be denied. In 1993, TV Guide named him the greatest sports broadcaster of all time. That year, he entered the International Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. In 1994, he was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame, although he was too sick to attend. More awards came after his death. In 1996, he was given a posthumous Sports Emmy and added to the American Sportscasters Hall of Fame and the International Boxing Hall of Fame. These honors proved one thing: no matter how it ended, Howard Cosell had changed the game forever.